Well, for a tournament that's supposed to be full of surprises, after we've seen 64 matches in 3 days of play, round one on the books, we're going round two at 2020 Roland Garros. Not too many major surprises. I'd say one surprise was Rafa Nadal wins in straight sets. That's not a surprise. But Mats Wilander, who a lot of people are very angry at after what he said about Andy Murray, we'll talk about that later in the show, but he pointed out that Rafa Nadal is having less of the buggy whip finishes and more across the shoulder, which means he's flattening out the ball a little bit more and hitting a little bigger, which all commentators, every network have noticed after that match, that the average speeds, forehand and backhand, went up for Rafa compared to last year. Not too big of a surprise, but Rafa making the necessary adjustments after telling the whole world that he thinks the balls are very slow, the conditions are slow, and it's going to be a tough challenge for him. Dominic Thiem, no surprise that he wins, of course, yesterday, but a little surprising that he said he actually really likes these conditions. And coming from Austria, from Österreich, Dominic said that he's played in cold weather tournaments at lower levels before, and he's pretty good at it. He likes it with his game.
I love the conditions because, well, I'm from Austria, so I know how it is to play in these cold conditions. And back in juniors and when I started to play futures, it was always like that, 10, 15 degrees cold. So I love it when it's not too fast. So I can be a little bit behind the baseline, make a lot of returns in court.
A bigger surprise to me, well, how about this? The Hamburger boys, the Hamburglers, coming from Hamburg final on Sunday, playing their first matches today, Tuesday. Andre Rublev and Sitsipas both come back 2 sets to love down and win in 5 sets. So a little surprising there. Pretty impressive, in fact, for them to do it virtually at the same time. And then you got this, Stan the man. He said something similar to Dominic Thiem, but he added something to the end of it that really caught my attention. Stan says, quote, "The current conditions are an advantage for me. Slow, heavy. It's good for my game. I have enough power to put weight in each ball. Here's the money line. I know that if I play well, I can, quote, beat everybody." That was a little bit surprising, especially considering that we just saw Stan get blown away in the first round in Rome to a teenager that no one had ever heard of before. And now, after one round of play, he sounds like he's full of confidence and thinks that he could win this thing. And I got to tell you, I believe him a little bit. So all eyes on that match tomorrow against Dominic Kepfer, which in my draw, I have him beating Stan. I didn't think Stan was near enough to his best, but after you hear something like that, and after you see what he did to Andy Murray, I know it's not the same Andy Murray, but still, the way he beat him, maybe we should take a closer look at Stan. So keep your eyes on him. And then finally, one more surprising thing. Novak Djokovic, in his win over Michael Emer today, 3-all, I believe, is when this happened. He gets his serve broken, and take a look. Grabbing that elbow spot. Yes, I favorite Djokovic to win this tournament, but because of these heavy conditions, I'm telling you, there's going to be some big surprises down the road. Is one of those a reoccurrence of the Djokovic elbow injury that ruined his 2017, part of his 2018, maybe even the tail end of 2016 had something to do with it. I don't know, but that was a major injury where he famously didn't have surgery but had an operation or whatever he called it, a procedure or something like that. Anyways, also in that 3-all game, take a look at this. I believe at ATP Cup back in January, we also saw somebody heckling Djokovic, and did he blow him a kiss then as well? Take a look. Who is this guy with a Roger Federer hat on and his mask? Well, I guess everyone has a mask besides the players. But look at this guy. He was heckling Djokovic. You can clearly see Djokovic angry, whacking his shoes, and blowing a kiss to the guy, which you got to say is pretty funny stuff. I mean, who does this guy think he is, heckling Novak Djokovic with his backwards Federer cap on? I'm telling you, that guy, I think he's a real jerk. It was me. It was me. Don't panic, Djokovic fans. It wasn't me. I would never heckle Novak Djokovic or any tennis player. Although I did one time heckle John Isner a long time ago when I was much younger. I regret it. I regret it very much to this day. Never heckle. Don't do that. Anyways, today on Coffee Break Tennis, we got a lot of good stuff for you. We've got some of your comments, which I crumpled up prematurely, but they're still legible. We've got comments, we've got stats. We got an interesting thing I want to look at, spin versus flatness. It's such a dicey subject to talk about conditions and flat balls and heavy balls and who hits this and who hits that and how it's going to play out. The court, the conditions, whatever, weather conditions. It's always a tricky business, but we're going to do our best to make sense of some of that and get a good comment regarding that. I think somebody was angry at me in that comment as well. We'll go through the draw and just see if there's any real surprises there. I did pretty good, but I got 21. Out of 64 matches, I got wrong. I picked the wrong choice 21 times, so I'm pretty upset. I'm like Rublev. I don't know if you saw Rublev, but he was so mad at one point. He bit his racket, and that's about how I feel looking over this racket bracket where I got 21 wrong. Luckily, there were a lot of which qualifier won, and they're not going to go much further. So I think my bracket would still do okay considering that. Also, we got what Mats Wilander talked about, the difference he noticed in Rafa Nadal, how he's adapted to conditions. All good signs for the Rafa fans out there. I still think Rafa could be in big trouble at some point here. I mean, come on, the conditions are terrible for him. He acknowledged it, but good signs. We'll talk about that. A little talk about this guy. One of my wrong picks. He took out Krajinovic. It's always tricky when you play a countryman, but Nikola Milosevic has basically said it's a crap show. It's a bad word show at the French Open. The way they're dealing with COVID, that it's much less organized. For all the talk, the criticism of the U.S. Open, a lot of stuff not running too smoothly at the French Open. So we'll look at what he had to say. Fernando Verdasco, also, he's threatening to sue, literally. I mean, he's serious. It sounds like he's serious. Maybe he's just saying it. He's talking about bringing a lawsuit to the French Open. We'll take a look at that. And, of course, we've got a lot of comments. But you know what? Let's start with this comment really quick. Put this up on the screen because I thought this was pretty interesting. This is from Brian Abruzzi. Dude, are you going to talk about Novak's press conference suddenly being shut down after his controversial comments about COVID testing? I guess you may suffer the same fate if you talk about it on your channel. Well, I don't think they're going to do that. They will get me, which, you know what, let me say this really quick. They will get me if I use footage from matches. And I won a big battle here. The Djokovic defaulted at the US Open video. Take a look for yourself. It is back up. It has 44,000 views last I saw. The USTA took it down. Hit me with a copy strike, which if you get 3 of them, your channel is automatically deleted, which is very scary. And I chose to fight it, which is even more scary because they basically tell you, okay, put all your personal information in. You don't have any information on who at the USTA is doing this to you. You just know it's them. And you got to put all your information in, and then you wait to see if they sue you. And I said, you know what? Screw it. If the USTA is going to freaking sue me over what I know is fair, it's called fair use law. You're allowed to use small clips from something like the US Open if you're doing commentary, which is obviously what I'm doing here at Coffee Break Tennis. Especially, you know, I put music and cut it up all fancy if you remember that video. Anyways, long story short on all of that, I won it. They had so many days to bring legal action, to prove that they're bringing legal action against me to YouTube. And they chickened out. The USTA did not bring a legal action, which they shouldn't have because it's wrong. They were clearly trying to intimidate me. They have backed off. That video is back up. I won this one. Anyways, I'm not going to be putting any clips up anytime soon because I don't want to go through all of that again, but just wanted to fill you in. I know some people have noticed my videos disappear. It's almost always the USTA. Tennis Australia's got me before, but Tennis Australia seems to be cooler about it now. Anyways, back to the comment. Roll the clip with no video. Roll the audio with a picture of Djokovic's face so you can listen.
I just think that I personally feel that that after the players maybe being tested positive, that 24 hours after should be another test to check whether whether it's a false positive or it's a double positive. If it's a double positive, of course, he should be out of the tournament. But if it's a false positive, then he should be allowed to play. And that has not been the case here. That has not been the case also in New York. But that has been the case maybe in some other ATP tournaments. So it's a little bit confusing for us. It's not easy, obviously, for organization of Roland Garros or any other tournament to deal with the amount of tests and amount of players. But I think it's just, it's just probably more fair towards the player if he has a chance to maybe be isolated in quarantine for 24 hours and wait for that second test right away to see if it's a false positive, because there has been a lot of evidence that there's been a lot of false positive tests, actually, not just in tennis, but just in general.
Novak, 8 wins in Australia.
Thank you.
5
guys.
in Wimbledon.
Here, they try to cut him short, And one more question gets in.
3 in New York. This Roland Garros, only one win for you. You need it this year. It's your year, right?
And then I guess I have to let the camera roll for like 1 second so you can see Djokovic's eyes kind of bug out of his head.
Let's see what happens.
Complicated.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, Novak.
Okay.
We are done yet. Thank you.
Sorry, man. Okay. Sorry. Nice to talk to you.
Because he's surprised that they cut it short. He doesn't make any stink about it, but says, sorry, dudes. Kind of weird. But my understanding is, according to what we have here with Fernando Verdasco, let's just knock this stuff out right now before we move on to anything else. Oh, we'll also take a look at Jim Courier and Kyrgios defending Andy Murray and lashing out at Mats Wilander. We'll look at that later. But this was Verdasco. It sounds like that they just changed it, which is what was the straw that broke the camel's back. Outraged, Fernando Verdasco says he could sue Roland Garros after his withdrawal. Fernando Verdasco, the lefty with a massive forehand, probably would have done pretty well here, has said he could sue Roland Garros for the personal and professional damage he has suffered after being withdrawn from the tournament. The 36-year-old pulled out of the final Grand Slam of the year after a positive COVID-19 test, but he said he had returned a negative result on several occasions before arriving to Paris, and he did another test after the positive and has said he was negative. So he's saying it's a false positive. He doesn't have COVID, yet he had to pull out of the tournament. He was not able to enter the tournament, has expressed his outrage at how the situation was handled, and said, quote, "No one can believe that a tournament like Roland Garros can do that. It can't be. It is no longer a thing about money. It's a thing of damage that does you personal and professional damage." Now, I guess it's going to hurt his mentality moving forwards. And obviously that's what he's thinking, because listen to this next line. "I don't know if I'm going to play again this year because you lose the desire for everything." And let me tell you, we just talked about you know how much work I put into that Novak Djokovic gets defaulted video, and it was clearly commentary was what I'm doing. It's clearly allowed. It's fair use. It's tiny clips. They'd have to prove that I'm replacing them as a product, right? Can you go to me and get a replacement for seeing the entire Djokovic match? No, that's obviously not the case. I'm doing commentary here and using tiny clips. And after they do that, I kind of feel like, you know what, screw the U.S. Open. I don't want to do coffee break tennis. I don't want to spend 5-6 hours making a video just for the USTA to take it down and try to intimidate me out of using clips from the U.S. Open. So I understand what he's saying here. You lose the desire to do anything. They do these things as they please without any coherence, without any respect. The things of the players are worth nothing. Imagine my outrage. It's incredible. It's disrespectful for a player who's been playing Roland Garros for 16 years. And the next day, they change the rule. So I guess Djokovic was right. He said, maybe you should let these guys have a chance to take another test and see if they get if it was a false positive. So I don't know what the controversy is there, why they cut Djokovic short. This next story will give you a better idea of why I think they actually did that. The next day, they changed the rule, and they can take a second test when I'm already out of the draw. That is the last straw. That's an angering one, isn't it? Comment below if you're angry. Terrible. That went in the net below the camera. It's supposed to hit the camera, Matt. Nikola Milojevic, Serbian, who took out Krajinovic and contributed to one of my, 20 mistakes I made. Nikola Milojevic describes major misses made by the French Open organizers. By the way, Roland Garros and French Open, they are the same thing. If I go back and forth between the two, don't get confused if you're new to tennis and don't know the difference. Quote from Nikola: "We don't have freedom since we aren't allowed to leave the hotel. It was the same at the U.S. Open, but the U.S. Open is a much bigger complex with much more space." Okay. Reasonable. Here, they are strict, to put it mildly. And then there are major misses in some other regards. And this is where it seems kind of like it's a mess. And I think that's why somebody cut Djokovic's presser short, because no one's really quite sure of what the rules are working there. They're kind of flying by the seat of their pants, as Nikola points out here. So take a listen. We'll get there eventually. When the organizers are asked about some rule, it's right here. When the organizers are asked about some rules, even the organizers of the tournament, are not sure. There's more of a representation of strictness, as in it's social distance theater, which is something I kind of noticed from the beginning. Why do we have the draw? I don't know if you watched the draw show. You got to be a diehard tennis fan to watch the actual draw show. But they have a guy with a microphone in a room by himself. I'm sure there's a cameraman or something. But he's got a mask on the whole time. Freaking everyone has a mask on. I'm not against masking by any means. Wear a mask. It's good. Clearly you saw I own some masks. I have Uniqlo masks too because I support Roger Federer. Wear a mask, but to me, it's almost like, as he's saying here, they want the illusion of being very strict, but behind the scenes, maybe it's really not that strict. Maybe they're not taking as seriously as they would want you to believe, is my point here. Then there are totally illegal practices, and that irritates the players, Milosevic told Sports Club, which is probably a Serbian publication, spelled club with a K. For example, we're supposedly completely enclosed in a bubble, but you have the right to walk from the Roland Garros complex to the training courts at Jean Bouillon, a 5 to 10 minute walk without any escort, and nowhere is it officially written that is allowed. Whoever you ask, they're not even sure. They say it's not recommended. Sometimes they clean the cars after you ride in them. Sometimes they don't clean the cars. At the hotel near the Eiffel Tower, there are floors reserved exclusively for Roland Garros players. However, that's not the case elsewhere in the building. We can go to the gym, and absolutely anyone can go to the gym. They're holding Pilates classes, training sessions. People are entering without masks. The virus could be transmitted from someone who has nothing to do with the tournament. Where we have dinner, a restaurant in the lobby, business people come in during the day, and none of them are wearing masks. There are some 10 to 20 of them. And then in the evening, the players all arrive wearing masks. It turns out to be strict towards the players, who I see are disciplined. But on the other hand, there are omissions like this. I wasn't at the U.S. Open, but from what I hear, it was much better organized. So interesting thing there. I know some people out there, I'm not one of them. A little better. I'm not one of them, but some people think there's a chance this French Open doesn't make it to the end before getting shut down. Anyways, let's move on to the draw, and we'll look at some stories, and then we'll come back to comments. And we got some stats here, so we'll look at that pretty soon too. Going through the draw, Djokovic has got Barrancas coming up. I was wrong about that. I thought Hugo Dellien would be more comfortable on clay, but sometimes it doesn't matter what the conditions are. Who's playing better? Who has more confidence? Who's hitting shots in more? Who's hitting shots out more? Yeah, the conditions can make you hit more out or more in based on what you like, but sometimes it just comes down to who's a better player at the moment, who's in a better place currently. Christian Garin, no surprise that he comes through Cole Schreiber there. We knew that would be tough. He does drop one set, but he gets through 6-4, 4-6, 6-1, 6-4. Tennis Sandgren, we did talk about in the draw show. I had him losing, but I said don't be surprised. He could easily be the guy who wins that. He's a tough player. Any conditions, anywhere. Look at him. I mean, he's physically, he's a beast, and he's just tough. So he comes through there. Not too big of a surprise. One thing that's kind of funny, I'm going to look at this. We'll do this next, actually. If you look at who hits a flat ball like Medvedev, no surprise there that Medvedev lost early. I thought he would finally find a way to get through because Fucsovics is good on clay, but he hasn't been very good at Roland Garros in the past. And I believe if you look at his win percentages, he does pretty well on clay, but I think he does better on hard courts. Anyway, so I thought maybe Medvedev could finally get through. Fucsovics is a tough first-round draw. He's a pretty good player. They asked him how he felt about it after it, and he said, hey, it's a big deal for me to beat a guy in the top 10 because I like my game. I believe in myself. I want to be in the top 10 one day. That's what I'm trying to do. So Fucsovics is a tough customer. Medvedev hits such a flat ball. I have this chart. Let's do it right now. Then we'll look at some results and talk about who had a flatter ball and who had a spinnier ball and how did that play out. So take a look at this chart. You can see people all over the place. The left side, the upward axis, is the higher up you are, the more spin on your backhand on average. This is 2018. It's the most recent I could find for this kind of data, but it's very interesting. The more you go to the right, the more spin you have on your forehand. Nothing about speed here, which is a different thing, because Dominic Thiem put this on the screen as well. They put this on Tennis Channel broadcast during Dominic Thiem's first-round match. Dominic Thiem is hitting a harder ball than Nadal. I can't remember if he's a little more spin than Nadal on average or if Nadal's a little more spin, but he's hitting it faster than Djokovic as well, you can see on that graph. Forehand and backhand, Dominic Thiem gets more miles per hour, more pure speed on the ball, which I think could actually be really important here because the spinnier ball of Rafa can drop short, although we know he is hitting it bigger than ever. So take a look at the chart again. Doesn't mention speed, but this is all about the rotation on the ball. So interesting to me that look who's identical. Rafa and Dominic Thiem are almost exactly the same. See how close their dots are there? Schwartzman, who gave Rafa a lot of trouble on slow conditions, where at Rome is where they played. Schwartzman beat Nadal, remember? Just like a couple weeks ago. Very slow conditions. Schwartzman beats him there, just like I think Djokovic would be able to beat him here in these very slow conditions. So look, isn't it interesting that Diego Schwartzman, and Novak are right next to each other? They're basically the same amount of spin on both shots. Steph Sitsipas, Grigor Dimitrov, see them. They're a little more spin than Federer, but they're very close. Felix Auger, someone I've compared to Federer as well. A little less, but still pretty close to Federer. And then Jack Sock, Berrettini, they've got more spin. They're on the extreme. On their forehands, they've got more spin than anyone on average. And you saw Berrettini come through a win today over Pospisil, who's pretty flat. Take a look at Pospisil, much flatter than Berrettini. And then look at Kukushkin, ends up winning. I think that's more to do with Fabio Fognini. He's had ankle surgeries recently. He's not feeling great out there. So I think that's more to do with Fabio Fognini falling apart than Kukushkin's flatness of ball. Medvedev is really close to Kukushkin from Kazakhstan, home of Borat. And Gilles Simon, he's got less spin than both of them on the forehand, but a little more spin on the backhand. All right, so you see this graph where all these guys are spread out. Obviously, with these conditions, I think another thing is about if you have a lot of spin, you need it, but you also need to hit it big. You need a lot of miles per hour, but you also need a lot of spin. The spin is not enough on its own. So let's take a look at Berrettini and Pospisil's stats here. Berrettini, 22 winners on 18 unforced errors. We saw from Dominic Thiem's match yesterday, I think he only had 17 winners. It's pretty hard in these conditions to hit a winner. But if you don't make many mistakes and you have the power to hit through your opponent, you have the power to hit through these slow conditions, and you have the spin to make it safer, it's a really valuable combo here. So Berrettini has that, 22 and 18. Pospisil's flatter. Look what he did, 17 and 45. Let's look at Gilles Simon. Gilles Simon's always been a very interesting character on tour for me. He's been around a long time. He's beat Roger Federer, I think, twice. He's beat Rafa. He's beat Djokovic. He's beat Murray. He's beat everyone in the Big Four. Not a lot, but he has beat them. And you can see he plays very flat. So he was very negative, 26 and 46. How did he manage to get a set off of Shapo? Well, Shapo was a little negative too, 55 and 65. But good encouraging signs from El Shapo, the rapper. I think he has a chance to do pretty well here. He did really well in Rome as well. That goes to what Stan was saying. The air is so thick from humidity, although tomorrow the conditions are actually a little better. The air is so thick that you kind of slows the ball down in the air, so you don't have to worry about hitting it out as much, and you can really crush the ball. So Shapo's enjoying that, and I think he's got a spinny enough shot. Take a look at him on the chart. He's got a good mix of spin and raw power. Let's look at Sam Querrey. He's pretty heavy on forehand spin, if you look at him on the chart, but not on the backhand side. And Rublev, very similar. It all comes down to who's playing better when they're, they play so similar and you got these conditions. Querrey comes out really firing away in this match. He obviously said, I'm going to use all the power I have and just grip and rip through these conditions. And he did it. Kind of caught Rublev off guard, but he couldn't keep it up. Rublev was able to play the best in the end, obviously coming back 3 sets in a row after losing the first 2. In fact, Rublev even made a miniature comeback. I think he was down 5-1. He's definitely down 2 breaks of serve in that second set, which I thought there's no way he survives this match, because how are you in that position? You come all the way back and have a chance to win the set and then just lose in a tiebreak to be down 2 sets to love. So that's a huge improvement. A couple years ago, no way Rublev wins this match. And even he said he was still very unhappy with how he handled his emotions out there. But got to credit the guy. He got a win, 64 and 20, 80 and 62 for Sam Querrey. Now, Roberto Bautista Agut, this just comes down to who's been playing better. Look at Gasquet. He's at the very top of this thing on the backhand side. So much spin on the backhand. And he was up. I want to say he was also up like 5-1 or 5-2 in that first set. And then Roberto Bautista Agut found a way to come all the way back and just crush Gasquet. But where has he been the last year or so? RBA playing much better than Gasquet everywhere. On average, 32 winners on 19, even though he's got such a flat ball. That's not going to be good long term, but he gets through Gasquet. Look at Marin Cilic, same deal, very flat ball compared to Dominic Thiem especially. 24 and 43, whereas Dominic Thiem, not a lot of winners, but much steadier, way less unforced errors, and almost about the same amount of winners as Marin Cilic. And then look at Medvedev and Fucsovics. Fucsovics definitely plays with more spin than Medvedev. I mean, take a look at Medvedev. He's one of the least on this chart. He's the lowest and most to the left of most of the people on the chart. 27 winners and 51 unforced errors, 36 and 49 for Fucsovics. In these conditions, this is what you're going to see. The guys who flatten it out more are going to struggle. Stan has a lot of spin on his backhand. His forehand is like a nice mix of raw power and spin. You can see he's more kind of middle of the field on that chart. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Let's go to a comment, because this is a good one. And this guy said that I ignored him before, which I didn't do on purpose. It's hard to read all the comments all the time, but I do read a lot of comments. Comment below if you have a good comment. Maybe we'll get it in tomorrow's show or the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a Patron Saint podcast because I got to play one of my first matches, the first match of the winter season in singles for me. So I will be playing tomorrow night, but I'll get a podcast up either very late or right before my match. We'll talk about who plays tomorrow. Some good matches tomorrow. Let's talk about those really quick. Stan Wawrinka and Dominic Koepfer, you got to see that. Is Stan for real a real threat here? We'll find out because Koepfer's playing really well. If Stan can give him a spanking, then we know Stan's for real. Jack Sock, Dominic Thiem, got to see that. And everything's must-see TV with Rafa Nadal right now just to see how he's playing in these conditions against anybody. So we'll talk about those three matches mostly tomorrow on the Patron Saint podcast. I couldn't do this show without the Patron Saints. To join the Patron Saints, go to patreon.com/coffeebreaktennis. So we'll catch you up in a couple days, everyone else. We'll talk about those matches tomorrow on the Patron Saint podcast. Do make a great comment, though. We'll get to you in a couple days if it's truly wonderful. This is a good comment here. This was regarding how to deal with all the different conditions, who it favors, and how confusing it can be. And this was regarding, I had responded to him. We were kind of debating about how Rafa, whether he likes fast or slow courts. The key for Rafa to remember is always it's about the bounce. How high is it? If it's fast and high bouncing, Rafa really likes that. If it's slow and high bouncing, Rafa's going to do well there as well. Rafa, over the years, has got better and better on the faster courts. Obviously, I mean, he was, that year, 2017, Shanghai was playing super fast. Federer is much better at fast courts, low bouncing fast courts than Rafa. So he was able to get him that year pretty easy. It was like a straight sets win, 2017 Shanghai final. But Rafa did make the final. So obviously he's gotten better at playing faster courts compared to when you used to see him just get thumped, losing to guys like Davydenko and Roger Federer. Did James Blake get him one time at the World Tour Finals or whatever they called it? All the way back then when Rafa was a lot younger. So he's gotten a lot better at faster courts. But anyway, so sure. But clearly, I can't remember what I said, but he's responding to me here. Clearly, Rafa isn't pleased with the slower conditions, something you and others have said suit his style. Also, in reference to your argument in other videos that statistical data shows the Wimbledon courts have been slowest from 2012 to present and that it suits Nadal, I point to the fact that Nadal had already won his 2 Wimbledon titles by 2010, but you never responded. In fact, Nadal made to the final of every Wimbledon tournament he entered between 2006 to 2011. That was before you claimed the courts were slowest. So again, how does it serve to Nadal's advantage? It is Djokovic that has benefited from the slower grass courts. Am I not correct? Since 2012, no one has won more Wimbledon titles than he. There's a great article by something called First Post. I'll put a link below in the description below the video. You can read this article for yourself. It's a long read, but you should read it. It's very interesting. It's all about how court speeds have changed, specifically Wimbledon. And what they say is Leighton Hewitt wins in 2002. That's the year after Sampras. Sampras wins several in a row and then loses the Roger Federer round of 16, 2001, very famous match. And in 2002, the article says it changed in 2001 a little, but in 2002 is when it really slowed down. They changed the seed for the grass. I'm no grass expert. Anyways, they changed the way the grass is, and it changed the speeds, and things slowed down. So 2002 is really when things slowed down. But regarding that, I remember back then, too, people were saying if this was like the 90s, Rafa would never be winning here. And maybe it's a good thing because a lot of people, it talks about in First Post, a lot of people in the 90s found Wimbledon quite boring. There's a great line in that article where it says, no one enjoys seeing your average service game being ace, ace, unreturned serve, unreturned serve. Service return error, service winner. So maybe it's a good thing that it happened. I think it has slowed down. This article says it hasn't. I think it has been slowing down gradually. It obviously was slower in 2019. Federer said it. A lot of people said that. The bounce was lower. That was a good thing for Roger in the end. That ultimately made it a better matchup for him against Rafa because it's all about height with Rafa. But, it's really easy to look silly with these things. And I just want to make one key point because, he pointed out here, he said in other videos, I've shown this data and I've said that the slow courts suit Rafa, but now I'm saying the slow courts at the French Open don't suit him. The key is all about the bounce and who's playing better. Bjorn Borg was the king of clay in his day, but he also was winning Wimbledon too. So sometimes you're the best player in the world. When Rafa beats Roger, 2008 Wimbledon, you could say the mono is the reason why. You could say Rafa was the best player in the world. I mean, he finished year in number 1 that year in 2008. Sometimes the best players who are they're going to find a way to win no matter what, no matter where they go. That's why I still believe Rafa has a chance here, and it's going to be very interesting to see what he does. Let's take a look at what Mats Wilander said. I looked enough at the draw. There's so many matches that happened. This show's going to go forever if we look at every single match. The Sitsipas match was interesting. His dad was there. I know a lot of people don't want his dad being his coach. I don't mind having coaches all in the family. Like Uncle Tony, one of the greatest coaches ever, maybe. Or maybe Rafa's just so great. He made Uncle Tony look like one of the greatest coaches. I think Uncle Tony had a lot to do with Rafa's success. But Sitsipas was a little less whiny to the box today. And they said, when Sitsipas went down first round in Rome, was it first round against Yannick Sinner? They said that he missed his dad. He was open about it. He said he really missed his dad being there. His dad comes back to Hamburg. He goes all the way to the final. Good that he was able to serve this one out. Coming back from 2 sets to love down today. Tough match against Spanish Jerry Seinfeld, who they're calling Yaum. Some commentator was saying Yaum. If you go to the ATPtour.com website, it says Jaume Munara. That's how he says his name on there. But call him Yaum. Whatever. Damien had a great comment here. Spanish Jerry Seinfeld becomes Spanish George Costanza as Sitsipas levels it at 2 sets apiece. Of course, he goes on to win it. Take a look at Damien really quick. I saw he posted this on Instagram. I knew this guy was a good tennis player, but take a look at this. Is that Stan the Man, or is that Damien Byrne? One of my all-time favorite coffee break tennis viewers. What a play. I hope I get to travel to Europe and play with Damien. If you're watching Damien, I hope we get to hit one day. What a nice backhand. Anyways, Spanish Jerry Seinfeld, Jaume Munara, he gave Sitsipas a lot of trouble, but for Sitsipas to come through that tough match, and the fact that he served it out and held to win in the end, didn't have to keep going forever, ever. He didn't get broken serving for it like he did against Chorich, like he did just recently on Sunday in Hamburglers against the not BS Russian Rublev. Anyways, thought that was really good. So let's move on to Mats Wilander. Eurosport expert Wilander was particularly impressed by the way Rafa Nadal stepped into the court and played more aggressively, with stats showing he hit the ball harder than last year. They have it in European speeds here, so we'll just read it. 4 kilometers per hour faster on average on the forehand, and on the backhand, 9 kilometers per hour faster. It's not a huge difference, but clearly it's different. And here's the quote from Wilander that I was talking about in the beginning of the show. I like the way he played and the way he finishes his forehand. Not above his head most of the time, the buggy whip, actually following through properly, according to Wilander. Wilander said this, if he's decided to play this kind of tennis, I don't want to be Djokovic or Dominic Thiem. I think Rafa is going to be very hard to beat. So he's done a 180. Mats Wilander is basically saying Rafa's screwed here. Now he's saying because of the way he's hitting through the ball a little more and not buggy whipping as frequently, that's going to make a big difference. Maybe. Wilander thinks Nadal has changed his approach because of the different conditions. With the tournament being played in autumn instead of summer. Quote, he also knows tactically that he cannot take his foot off the pedal. In the past, May, June, he could win matches by retrieving, going backwards, but today he cannot. The players are better. The conditions are heavier. He needs to go forward and be aggressive. I'm a bit surprised at how well he played today. At the same time, it's Rafa Nadal, potentially the greatest player of all time. He adapts to every surface and every ball. Every day I see him play, I think he's nearly impossible to beat. Next up, he faces Mackie McDonald. So there you go. I want to talk about this really quick. I got in an argument on Twitter with somebody about Stan the Man and Rafa Nadal. I know Rafa's got a great head-to-head against Stan. Stan does have a few wins since he became Stan the Man, obviously the biggest one being the Australian Open, where Rafa was hurt. Fair, but Stan's also beat Rafa on clay. I think it's just once, but he has done it. And this guy was telling me that if Stan gets all the way through to the semis, beats Dominic Thiem, whatever, and Rafa faces him, Rafa's going to love it and just kill him. He's going to crush him. And I'm not so sure, because even though, like Mats Wilander said, Rafa's obviously playing more aggressive, I did see some Rafa buggy whip forehands that kind of sat up in the middle of the court. Just a little, not a ton, but it did happen. And it just makes you wonder if someone like Stan, who could play really heavy, would you get more of that out of Rafa? Will Rafa, when he's under pressure, be able to play like this, or is he going to revert back to what's more comfortable? I mean, he is possibly the greatest player of all time. If he wins this, he's only one slam away from guaranteeing that he goes down in history as the greatest, unless Djokovic catches up and takes over. But you know what I mean? He'll pass Federer, possibly. And we'll see. We'll see. Comment below. That's my big question for you today. Do you think Stan or Thiem, somebody like that, who can hit harder than Rafa, can actually hit the ball harder than him, do you think because of the conditions they got a better chance? To me, this guy was saying it's all about width, controlling the width and the angles against Stan, because Stan's not as good of a mover and stays back. I think that's good, but if you rewatch the 2017 French Open final where Rafa beats Stan pretty bad, the one thing you see happen a lot is the lefty. It's the same pattern from Roger Federer. You kick it, you hit that left-handed super spin forehand, heavy cross court to the one-handed backhand, and you see Stan, having to slice down at these balls, not hitting his big one-hander as much, and you also see him when there's a ball just hanging. He doesn't know which way to go. Is Rafa going to keep hitting my backhand again like he's been? Stan will start to lean that way, and then he pounds the forehand side, and Stan is not as good of a mover. But with these conditions, Rafa's ball, it doesn't trouble the backhand the same way. It doesn't move through the court as fast. Stan's ball will get through the court, especially the forehand side. It's a flatter ball, but it's still spinny enough to where it's not going to be like Marin Cilic, where you're worried about hitting a lot of balls out. You already heard Stan in the beginning of the show saying that these conditions, he feels like he can beat everybody. I'm worried if that was a matchup for the Rafa fans, if Rafa Nadal gets Stan. So comment below your thoughts on that. Let's do one more thing, then comments will get out of here. Kyrgios and Courier, what did they say? Danny Valverdue, I thought, said the best thing. Mats Wilander says that at some point, Murray's going to have to ask himself, what is he doing out there? Should he just retire? He's taking wild cards away from the next generations, from the younger players. And then he said that he did the same thing in his career, lost early, first round, second round results all the time. And he regretted it. Mats Wilander said he regretted it. And I know a lot of people hate Mats Wilander, and we're really mad about that. And I think, he does have, you have no right to tell, shut up, you have no right to tell Andy Murray what to do, is basically what Kyrgios said. And I understand that, but, his job is to be a commentator. We know from the history of Mats Wilander that he loves to say controversial things and stir it up. So, that's kind of his job. That's what he does. Not too big of a surprise. I thought Valverdue said it best. This is guy who coached Andy Murray, coached Tomas Berdych. He's working with Stan the Man, who we've been talking about a lot today right now. Quote, he's entitled to his opinion, Mats Wilander is, like I'm entitled to mine, which is, I think that's absolutely pathetic from Mats. So, yeah, we're all free to say that. I don't think anyone out there is saying Mats Wilander should lose his job or something. That's a little bit overboard. His job is to say interesting things in commentary. I mean, he has a high tennis IQ, so sometimes he says stuff that's worth listening to. Jim Courier, the former Roland Garros champion, currently working for ITV, was more measured and argued, I certainly think this isn't the end of Andy Murray unless he wants it to be. He has more runway to play. He's realistic about what that looks like, and I think everyone should be as well. Certainly, Andy didn't play his best. He knows that. He's very realistic, and I think he's going to fare far better when playing on indoor courts that are a little quicker, that are a little lower bouncing. I mean, yeah. Remember at Cincy on those fast courts? Cincy in New York, faster than Arthur Ashe Stadium was because they weren't using it at that time. Ooh, direct hit. Murray beat Sasha Zverev, who went on to be the finalist at the U.S. Open. So, yeah, let Murray go out his own way. I think that's the bottom line here. All right, let's read a couple more comments, and then we'll get out of here. Nonchalant says, these conditions are good for Stan, Thiem, and Djokovic. They and Rafa have the best chance of winning. Jannik Sinner is the dark horse. Jannik Sinner looks really good. If anyone's going to break through with a little magic, a little teenage magic, and have a really big result, like a Rafa Nadal type result, win the thing or get close, Jannik Sinner's not a bad one to pick. I just worry because I've seen the guy's legs fall apart on him, or whatever it is. Something physical, he loses it, but he still tries. Quote from Mike 3DFX, this is the second time Stan ends Murray's career. Well, if Murray did take what Mats Wilander said to heart and retired, you could very much say that, indeed. From Brian, we already did that one. From Tyron, we did that one where we're talking about the different speeds. Carol Morris, this was a good one. This was regarding what we just talked about, Andy. She says, I was never an Andy Murray fan, but having shattered my left tibia and fibia 18 months ago, and I'm still limping around, I cannot do anything but admire Andy's tenacity. As for his tennis, I believe he's just playing for the enjoyment of the game. I'm sure he knows his major winning days are over. I mean, what else is Andy Murray going to do? Is he going to go be a stockbroker or something? Might as well play. I would. If you love it, you love it. Here's a good one from Nixon. Hit the music. We're getting out of here. How is this French Open going to end? And the better question is when? There's only one court with the roof. Rain every day and low temperatures. Lots of rain delays. Cold. Players are going to get sick maybe. I don't like how this is looking. And you know what? It looked like that today. Here's some pictures I screenshotted from today's matches. And it's hard to see the rain, but there's a steady, especially in the morning, steady rain coming for hours. They had to stop play. They go back out and keep playing in the rain. I mean, take a look at this. This was amazing. Rublev is clearly on his face right now. He's thinking, why did I play Hamburglers? Even though he comes through and wins, probably doesn't regret it now. But maybe in that moment when he thought he was going to go out in the first round to freaking Sam Querrey, maybe he was thinking, why did I play Hamburg? Very funny scene seeing Rublev so upset that he just wants to stand in the rain and get wet, and then you see Sam Querrey walking around with this giant, ridiculous-looking umbrella. It's a good point. Somebody might come down with a cold, but the players who got a chance to win this thing most likely will be under the roof most of the time. All right, tomorrow, Patron Saints podcast. The next day, full show on the video for everyone. We'll see you then. Enjoy the tennis. Don't forget to take a good look at Stan the Man playing Kepfer tomorrow. And also Jack Sock, Dominic Thiem. Jack Sock thinks he has a chance. We'll talk about that in a couple of days. See ya!